So we concluded making all of our asynchronous Redux work. And now we have this really cool ability to kind of navigate around our site and make API requests, cache them, and then not re-request them, which I think is pretty compelling. So again, you just see that it just pops up right away, which I think is great. So this is kind of the most simple way of doing asynchronous actions with Redux. Again, you can get into libraries like Redux Promise is another one that I find very intuitive to use, that you, instead of dispatching functions, you dispatch promises, right? Same thing with Redux Observable. You dispatch an observable with RxJS or something like that. And then Sagas is kind of like the heavy lifter. It's really cool, but I would assert that it's much more complicated and more difficult to kind of get your mind around. So if you're familiar, ES6 added another feature called generators, which are really cool. They're really powerful, but they are can be a bit unwieldy and kind of difficult to understand what's going on sometimes. With Sagas, you can dispatch generators and take care of things and kind of complex orchestrations using various generators. So it's cool, but make sure you want to undertake that complexity if you're going to use them. But suffice to say, thunks usually handle most of your use cases. That's why I tend to stick with them. So does anyone have any questions about Redux in general?
I was curious, the persistent data that you get between pages, can you do that with React still? Or is that Redux specific?
The answer is you can absolutely do it with React, but you're going to have basically something on the side holding on to that data, right? If you unmount data, right, it's going to, or if you unmount a React component, it's going to lose all of its state, so it can't live in that state. However, if it's living up at the app level, right, app is still technically being rendered, so if you push that up into app, right, it's going to persist across different views because it's still alive, right, it's still being rendered. So that's how you would achieve that. Cool. Good question. Other questions?
Is the search still working? Because I did a poll and the search didn't seem to be working.
I think so. What'd you do? I'm just kidding. Any other questions? The good news here is we are done with application code. Everything else I'm going to show you from here on out is just more tools, more techniques, right? Tests, all that kind of stuff. But now you pretty much have a full, I would deem a full grasp on how to write React and how to write at least the basic levels of Redux, not getting into like the crazy stuff like that. There are still more facets of it that we haven't really explored, but suffice to say that I've shown you, I would say 90% of use cases on both React and Redux. So I would say you, armed with the knowledge that I've shown you over the past 2.5 days, you can write large-scale React applications. And I think that's pretty awesome that React is small enough and intuitive enough, or at least I deem intuitive enough, that you really can learn it in 2.5 days.